When we travel, we want to be understood. Ordering food, asking for directions, grabbing a taxi, or simply expressing gratitude or a salutation. I truly believe that being able to communicate is the key to unlocking a destination. You can experience exponentially more of a destination's culture and people, and I think you can also relax a little bit more. You don't have to worry about every single interaction. Ordering a coffee or buying a transport ticket doesn't need to be some anxiety-inducing episode. But it's not always easy, is it? Language is hard, and there are a lot of them to wrap your head around. Frankly, we English speakers have a huge advantage. English is by far the most widely spoken second language, meaning if someone's going to speak another language other than their own, chances are it's going to be English. But that doesn't mean that everyone you come across in every place you visit is going to understand you. Far from it. But there are ways that you can improve your chance of being understood. Now, my interest in this is beyond travel. I'm fascinated by it. I studied English language and linguistics at school and at university, and I've always been interested in language and linguistics, especially the many idiosyncrasies found in English. And those idiosyncrasies are what make English a benefit as well as a burden. It's a complicated language full of complicated structures and rules. But I've also learned this in my professional world. I give 50 or 60 speeches a year, and I'd say anywhere from 20 to 30% of those are translated in real time, meaning someone sits in a booth, listens to me blab away, and translates it as I say it to people listening on headsets. You might have seen it in places like the UN. My speeches are littered with idioms, slang, puns, and terrible dad jokes. Not to mention all the weird everyday grammar structures we have in English, like the double auxiliary verb. For example, I was in a bad mood because I had had a terrible day. Had. What is up with that? Anyway, one day before one of my speeches, I spent an hour with the translator, sitting and reviewing my content, identifying any of my terrible jokes that wouldn't translate well, but most importantly, listening and understanding to what makes her job easier, thereby making me and my content easier to understand. And the tips and tricks that she shared with me, I now use every time I travel. Speak slowly. When we're nervous or uncomfortable, we tend to speak quickly. That causes us to fumble over our words, stutter, hesitate, not enunciate, and those are just more barriers to being understood. So slow down. Remember, the person you're speaking to is almost certainly going to be translating every word you're saying in their head in real time. So give them a fighting chance to keep up with what you're saying by speaking slower than you ordinarily would. Enunciate your words more than you would if you were speaking to a fellow native English speaker. Now, there is a difference, I hasten to add, between enunciating, speaking your words clearly, and yelling. Enunciating is absolutely going to help you be better understood. Speaking louder will not. All it's going to do is draw attention to you and frankly come off as incredibly condescending to the person that you're speaking to. So don't do it. Speak in the present tense. English is full of irregular verbs. What's an irregular verb? Well, let's look at a regular verb first. A regular verb is one that follows a pattern, like the verb to look. I look, you look, we look, they look. And in the past tense, we just add ed. I looked, you looked, we looked, they looked. An irregular verb, however, is one that does not follow a pattern, like the verb to be, one of the most common verbs in English, but also one of the most irregular. It is irregular in all forms of the present tense. I am, you are, she is. And past tense, we don't just add ed to be. We don't say I beed, you beed, we beed, they beed. We say I was, they were. And it even has an irregular past participle, just another form of the past tense, been. Now, the way to get around this complication, and there's lots of complications there, you're confused, I'm confused. Imagine what it's like to a non-native English speaker. All we have to do is speak in the present tense. Now, that will feel a little bit strange, talking about something that's already happened or is going to happen in the present tense. But the context of your conversation and the rest of the words in your sentence will more than make up for that. For example, you could very easily say, yesterday, I am very sick. Yesterday is a very, very commonly understood word. It means it happened in the past. So the fact that you're saying that you were sick in the present tense doesn't matter because we've contextualized it. On the other side of things, you could say, tomorrow, I go to the zoo. Tomorrow, another commonly understood word, meaning it's going to happen in the future. It doesn't matter that you're saying the rest of the sentence in the present tense. And if you think about the correct way of saying that sentence, tomorrow I will be going to the zoo versus tomorrow I go to the zoo, there are way less words that need to be translated, way less tenses, way fewer chances for you to be misunderstood. So while it may feel a little bit awkward, speak in the present tense, you're giving yourself way more of a chance of being understood. Use shorter sentences. When we're talking, especially casually, it's kind of a stream of consciousness. We're talking and then in the same breath we're going back and we're re-qualifying something we've already said, adding a little bit of detail. It's very difficult to keep up with if you're a non-native speaker. So instead of using those long, convoluted sentences, break your thoughts into shorter, more manageable phrases. Don't use 10 words when 2 will suffice, and choose those straightforward and commonly used words that can be easily translated and easily understood. English is full of wonderful linguistic structures and devices that allow us to express ourselves creatively. Idioms, slang, colloquialisms, puns, they make for great writing and great expressiveness. But when you're trying to be understood in a foreign country, that's not the time to use these wonderful devices, so avoid them. To tell someone that you're feeling under the weather, or that you have bigger fish to fry, or that something is hella good, Bay Area represent, is at best going to be greeted with a raised eyebrow and at worst, fundamentally prevent you from being understood. Consider the way their language is structured. This is an interesting one and one that I've only just learned to appreciate. When people learn English, even to a degree of fluency, there are certain parts of grammar and vocabulary from their language that come through. For example, in many Western European languages, you'll hear people say in English, let's go take a coffee. As native English speakers, we would say, let's go have a coffee, or maybe get a coffee. But in many Western European languages, saying to have or get a coffee doesn't really make any sense. So it's translated into English as to take a coffee. And you'll only pick up on these small differences by listening to non-native English speakers speak English. Then you can also include these subtle but important differences when you're speaking English in that country. One less thing to be misunderstood. Don't be afraid to use translator apps to bridge those gaps. And if all else fails and you're not understanding each other, break out Google Translate. It's fine. Type in what you want to say, show them the translation on your phone. In fact, one of my all-time favorite attaché moments happened because we did this. We were filming in Fukuoka and after a long day, went to an izakaya to have some beers. Perched next to us were 2 ladies who immediately, for some reason, took a fascination in us. For most of the evening, all they did was throw shy glances in our direction before one of them was eventually brave enough to ask us in halting English where we were from. Well, emboldened by the Asahi and with the help of Google Translate, we engaged in a painfully slow but hugely entertaining back and forth. And as Greg leaned over to show a translation on his phone, one of our new friends squealed in delight and excitedly fired off something in rapid Japanese to her companion. She looked at Greg's hand and quickly pulled up her sleeve to reveal her watch, which was the exact same one that Greg had on. It took a second for the rest of us to catch up, but after we did, we all became best friends, drinks all around. Never would have happened if we hadn't taken out Google Translate. Finally, and maybe most importantly, take some time to learn a few key phrases and words in the local language of wherever it is you're visiting. Showing an effort to learn and use some basic phrases in the local language can go a long way in building a rapport and can bridge those language gaps between English and the local language. There are so many great resources for learning languages, and by watching this video, you're already on the way. So don't forget to click the link in the description below and join a language sprint. That's what we call an upsell. So there you go, a few tips and tricks to help you be understood the next time you're traveling in a place where English is not the first language. And hey, if you've got some tips you want to share with the community, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Or if you've had any embarrassing language misunderstandings or mishaps, those are always fun to share as well. So leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.